Well, we've got the Wall Street Journal that just filed a motion to dismiss down in Miami and calling Donald Trump somebody who's incapable of being defamed because his reputation is so terrible for being vulgar and obscene. While that's going on, the New York Times didn't even have to file a piece of paper to get Judge Meredith, Donald Trump's apparently chosen judge in Tampa, Florida, to dismiss Donald Trump's complaint, which is nothing more, as we've heard before, as a political screed masquerading as a lawsuit. It was dismissed by the judge on his own initiative, sua sponte, if you will. Gave Donald Trump 28 days to get his act together and file a better pleading, and will entertain motions for sanctions. We cover it all on the MeidasTouch Legal AF podcast. And here's a clip. New York Times, one of my favorite events from this week was Judge Meredith, handpicked by Donald Trump in his courtroom for this case. When we read the hundreds of paragraphs of complete and utter narcissistic, egotistical BS, you and I and everybody else that looked at it concluded that this was not a serious lawsuit, much the way none of the lawsuits that Donald Trump files against media is a serious lawsuit. But it was to paraphrase Judge Middlebrooks when he fined Donald Trump $1 million 3 years ago with Alina Habba, it's a political screed masquerading as a lawsuit. When I saw it, I said that whoever is assigned to it, and this is a Republican-appointed G.W. Bush appointee, chief judge of the Middle District of Florida, which sits in Tampa, and I'm a member of the Middle District. He said that I said, well, it's going to be made quick work. I actually said, this is right off the bat. This is a violation of Rule 8 about short and concise statements, notwithstanding the fact that it's subject to a motion to dismiss, because even with this prolix 230 whatever paragraph complaint, nowhere in there is the proper elements to support defamation and actual malice. In fact, when you got to actual malice, which is a term of art in the law that's required for a public figure like Donald Trump to prove, under a case that has the New York Times' name in it from the 1970s, Sullivan and New York Times, you have to prove not just that the statement is false. And there's a whole bunch of stuff, picayune things like, I wasn't discovered by Mark Burnett on The Apprentice. I made The Apprentice. Okay, but that's a matter of opinion. That's not a fact. You can't sue somebody over that. But there were just dozens and dozens of paragraphs like that. But in order to do that, you also have to prove not just falsity, but you have to show that the other side, the media company in particular, either knew it was false or recklessly disregarded whether it was true or false. That's called actual malice. When I got to the actual malice section, I said, here we go, because it's like a heightened pleading standard for that. What do they got? They got an email. They got a phone call. What do they got? And all they had was the street version of the Trump derangement syndrome. They obviously hate me. The paper hates me. The guy hates me. The writer hates me. They're really angry at me. They don't like me. Is that it? Did I satisfy actual malice now? No. So I knew this pleading was not long for this world. What I didn't expect is that the judge, what we call sua sponte, on his own initiative, took one look at the complaint and went, nope. And not only kicked it, because he could have just kicked it, this is a Rule 8 violation, please refile, good day. Or as Trump's spokespeople said, our blockbuster lawsuit against the New York Times will continue. We just have to comply with some logistics. Comply with some logistics? Okay, here's what, and then I want to get to a clip from Donald Trump. Here's what Judge Meredith, who did not have to write this is what he wrote. The reader of the complaint must labor through allegations. Labor through allegations, this is on page 2, such as a new journalistic low for the hopelessly compromised and tarnished gray lady. That's the New York Times. The reader must endure an allegation of the desperate need to defame with a partisan spear rather than report with an authentic looking glass. That sounds like a Stephen Miller special. And an allegation that the false narrative about The Apprentice was just the tip of the defendant's melting iceberg of falsehoods. Similarly, Judge Meredith reports, in one of many often repetitive and laudatory toward President Trump, but superfluous allegations. The pleader states that The Apprentice, that's my favorite one, represented the cultural magnitude of the President Trump's singular brilliance, which captured the zeitgeist of our time. And then Judge Meriday says, and this is the signal, and I just did a hot take on it. He's inviting a Rule 11 motion by the New York Times. I think the New York Times is going to say, let's just see what they do in the next pleading, and then we'll really hit him with a Rule 11 motion for sanctions for bad faith filing. But I think they could do it now, because when he started not once but twice by saying, as every member of the bar of the federal court knows or is presumed to know. He used that statement not once but twice. If I'm on the other side, that's an invitation for me to file a Rule 11 motion for sanctions against the lawyer that filed this along with Donald Trump. But here's the part that got all the press, the statement on page 4, again, starting with, as every lawyer knows, you can't file this. A complaint is not a public forum for vituperation and invective, not a protected platform to rage against an adversary. A complaint is not a megaphone for public relations or a podium for a passionate oration at a political rally or the functional equivalent of the Hyde Park Speaker's Corner. Try it again. So Donald Trump, of course, gets hit with the question by Jonathan Karl, his arch nemesis. And of course, the mask drops. This is an administration that said, along with its FCC chairman, that they would stop what they considered to be Biden's suppression of First Amendment speech and the weaponization of his administration and the Department of Justice to go after MAGA First Amendment speech. Have we ever seen an administration more hell-bent on crushing dissent and crushing First Amendment speech than led by Brendan Carr, the FCC chairman, and Donald Trump? And he's asked about that and about it. So it's okay to crush the speech of those who dissent against you, but not against others. And this is right after Carl asked him about the loss on this motion, this order by Judge Meriday. We have the clip. Let's roll the clip. So
I just want to sell this free speech question, because you've said that you restored free speech in America.
Yeah.
Is that free speech including for people who are harshly critical of you, for your political opponents, for people who say things you don't like?
I've become immune to it.
Unfairly?
I've become immune to it. There's never been a person that's had more unfair publicity than me, and that's why your network paid me $15 million, or $16 million, I believe, to be exact, George Slopadopoulos. And that's why CBS paid me a lot of money, too. And that's why I sued the New York Times 2 days ago for a lot of money. Because I'm winning. I mean, I'm winning the cases. And the reason I'm winning is because you're guilty, John. You're guilty. ABC is a terrible network, a very unfair network, and you should be ashamed of yourself. NBC is equally bad. I don't know who's worse. I think they're equally bad. And, you know, for you to stand there and act so innocent and ask me a question like that. But look, you paid a big price because you were dishonest, John. The reason I won that lawsuit was because you were dishonest. You were proven to be dishonest. And so you can't sit back and just say, oh, well, what do you think? You know, like you're some wonderful person. You're not a wonderful person. Frankly, you're a terrible reporter.
All right. So the thing he's talking about for ABC is that George Stephanopoulos, when he was interviewing E. Jean Carroll, used the term rapist instead of sexual abuser for Donald Trump. And that led ABC, owned by Disney, to stroke a check for $15 million to bail out their journalists instead of defending him, because they were worried about back to the FCC. This always ties back to the FCC. The FCC regulates media outlets, television, and others. And ABC, owned by Disney, cares about their media assets. They don't care about their journalistic integrity. They never have. And so they paid $15 million rather than fight. The sad part is, I just had Ben Weisner on from the American Civil Liberties Union. They would win these cases in federal court. If they would just go to federal court and get a federal court judge, they would win on all of the precedent. And even this Supreme Court, MAGA right wing, would be hard pressed to crush First Amendment speech the way that he's doing it. But they don't do it, hoping that he'll go away. Then they didn't go away because they came back with Jimmy Kimmel. The only reason ABC, Disney, took Kimmel off the air is because there's a $6.2 billion transaction at the heart of it, which is their leading TV station affiliate, who owns 250 TV stations, is trying to get an approval to take over a 50 station merger candidate, one of their rivals, and needs the FCC's approval. So they leaned on ABC to get rid of Kimmel because Brendan Carr and Donald Trump saw this as an opportunity in the wake of Charlie Kirk's death to get rid of Jimmy Kimmel. Think about how thin-skinned the president of the United States is, that he cares about what late night television says about him so much that he needs to take Seth Meyers and him. Comedy Central's next. Comedy Central's owned by a corporate parent. I don't know how, I don't want them off the air, but I don't know how South Park's still on the air and Jon Stewart's still on the air and the rest of them. But if they would fight back in court, they would win. So we have to start getting the corporate media to start defending journalism and freedom of the press the way that we do here, with our comments and commentary. And Brendan Carr is going to be the subject of a lawsuit. Right now, it started as a FOIA request by Democracy Forward, asking for every email, every calendar entry, every communication between the White House and FCC about going after ABC for the Jimmy Kimmel incident and anybody else. Look, we just had the White House think it was inappropriate to have the Biden administration, a couple of people on the Biden administration, call up and tell some of the media, don't run COVID, the alternate view of COVID vaccine. And that led to a series of decisions that said, we don't really like that. We don't like when you try to get the NRA to lose their banking relationships. What are you going to do here? Donald Trump's threatened by a monologue by Jimmy Kimmel. See, here I think he's overplayed his hand. Leave it to that's the gift. Leave it to the Republicans and MAGA to overplay their hand while they were winning a news cycle. Now they've overdone it with Kimmel, and the rest is coming out. And as you said, I agree with Schiff completely that he's so trashed the Department of Justice's reputation and its prosecutorial integrity is left in tatters, that grand juries sense it, juries sense it. They can't get indictments. They can't get convictions because nobody's believing a word that they said, especially in the cities that are the states that are blue. And so now we've got a two-tier justice system. The other thing that they're not believing, or the other thing that connects back to the attack on the freedom of the press and the First Amendment is by undermining the Department of Justice and by making statements the way Donald Trump is making it, you're providing a gift to the defense. Vindictive prosecution is a defense. And if you go after and you have these prosecutors, as we said earlier, resign in protest, that is used by the defense that said, this is vindictive prosecution. The prosecutor on the case said there's no case. And now they're going after their political rival. And that provides a gift to the defense, just as Kash Patel talking about the shooting suspect for Charlie Kirk and talking about his DNA evidence undermines the case for the prosecution. Same thing here. And everything that Donald Trump says, and he can't help himself, obviously. He has some sort of mental disease. If anybody has Trump derangement syndrome, it's Trump. He just can't stop talking. And all of these clips right now that you and I run on Legal AF, they end up as footnotes in motions to dismiss and in briefing that's sent into federal courts about the animus and the invective that's being heaped on the First Amendment and those that practice it, like Donald Trump. He's not helped. But we saw this. How many times, Ben, did we talk about the evidence that he created in real time that was used against him in cases, including his criminal cases?
Yeah, well, that's why, in connection with the course and scope of him being the president, being in the Oval Office, you can never get his deposition, but you basically get his deposition every day. He gives you the incriminating admissions or the liability-inducing admissions that you then bring into court, and it's crystal clear that they're not being shy about the authoritarian intention. In the same sentence in the clip that you showed, where Donald Trump says, yeah, I'm immune to people making fun of me. Well, you can't do it. I'm going to go after you. Like in the same sentence, it's like, it's psychotic. It's actually like psychotic. And I'm not trying to use that term lightly and let him off because I understand the severity of mental illness and he needs to be held accountable for his intentional and malicious conduct, but like he is not he's not a well human being. Like he's He's a deeply pathologically disturbed thing that civilized society should not countenance. Like, we should not act like that's the way adults behave. I mean, it's like literally a man baby running around in a diaper, essentially behaving in ways that are just unbecoming, that's not how adults or leaders or role models should behave. It just isn't. And that's why when the judge acted with moral clarity in the order in the New York Times case and mocked it and said, I was like, thank you, because moral clarity to me is the word. In addition to legal clarity, a lot of my involvement in politics and creating a news network and just doing this is a frustration that there's a lack of moral clarity. And all of this both sidesism is filtered, is being perpetuated by the media. And I'm like, this guy's just not acting normal. Like he's not acting lawfully or normally. And I'm sick and tired of acting like, oh, well, that's Trump. Like he's some avatar in some humorous movie. No, he's a wrecking ball in lives. And I just want to see dignified and distinguished and smart and intelligent and thoughtful and nice and empathetic human beings in leadership position. If I were to define what my political ideology is, it's pretty much that.
Welcome back. We sit at the intersection of law and politics. We do it twice a week on Wednesday and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern time. And then, and that's on the MeidasTouch YouTube channel. And then you can pick us up at your leisure on all podcast platforms of your choice, Google, Spotify, Apple, you name it. And because of you, we're at top 50 in both audio and video versions of the Legal AF podcast. Find out why we named it that, why Ben Meiselas and me branded it Legal AF 5 years ago. Thank you for being here. If you want to be a full-blown member of Legal AF and its community, a card-carrying member, watch it. Listen to the podcast, watch the podcast, come over to Legal AF, the YouTube channel, and become a member there. Hit subscribe. It's all free. Come over to Legal AF Substack, become a paid member there as well. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popak. I'm Michael Popak, and I got some big news for our audience. Most of you know me as the co-founder of MeidasTouch's Legal AF and the Legal AF YouTube channel, or as a 35-year national trial lawyer. Now, building on what we started together on Legal AF, I've launched a new law firm, the Popak Firm, dedicated to obtaining justice through compassionate and zealous legal representation. At the Popak Firm, we are focused on obtaining justice for those who have been injured or damaged by a life-altering event, by securing the highest dollar recoveries. I've been tirelessly fighting for justice for the last 35 years, so my own law firm organically building on my Legal AF work just feels right. And I've handpicked a team of top-tier trial fighters and settlement experts throughout all 50 states known as big auto injury attorneys who have the know-how to beat heartless insurance companies, corporations, government entities, and their attorneys. Big Auto's attorneys working with my firm are rock stars in their respective states and collectively responsible for billions of dollars in recoveries. So if you or a loved one have been on the wrong side of a catastrophic auto, motor vehicle, rideshare, or truck accident, suffered a personal injury, or been the victim of medical malpractice, employment harassment or discrimination, or suffered a violation of your civil and constitutional rights, then contact the Popak Firm today at 1-877-POPAK-AF or by visiting my website at www.thepopakfirm.com and fill out a free case evaluation form. And if we determine that you have a case and you sign with us, we don't get paid unless you do. The Popak Firm, fighting for your justice every step of the way.